Hello lovely people, thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. More on them later. And happy Disability Pride Month! Yes, we have one too. I can see you're surprised. That's because no large corporations have commercialised it yet. They will. If you follow certain accounts on YouTube, TikTok and Instagram, then you're probably very aware that it's Disability Pride Month, to which I can only say, hi friends! One of the most common themes I see popping up in comments though is, I'm self-diagnosed, can I still be included? And if your first thought there was, how can someone self-diagnose their missing leg, then you really need to expand your idea of what disabled means. Because trust me, it's a lot more than that, pal. A disability is any condition of the mind or body that makes it more difficult for someone to do an activity or interact with the world around them. Thus, they have a limitation on their ability to be independently active, i.e. without any kind of aid. Yes, a Paralympian running on running blades is still disabled. And or the person has a struggle in participating in the things that are going on around them. Which means that yes, conditions that are not physical also fall under the umbrella. But you knew that, really. One thing that non-disabled people do always seem surprised by when meeting their first disabled person is that we don't carry cards. Not calling cards, although I'm all for bringing those back. I mean that there isn't a registry of the disabled. We're not just born with a little tag on our toe that says, card me, to which the doctor goes, yep, add this one to the registry, pops our name on it, and then, hands out a little card that says, disabled, access to fancy bathrooms and parking spaces allowed. Also may board planes early. It's actually a lot more complicated than that. Not all disabled people are born with their disability, and even for those who are, not all of us will be diagnosed at birth or even in childhood at all. Thinking of birth defects, only 2 to 3% of infants are actually diagnosed at birth, but this rises to 5% by their first birthday due to things being either just missed or it being a case of, we're gonna have to wait and see until their tiny body grows. I have 2 genetic defects and I wasn't even diagnosed until I was 17. They just thought I was really, really floppy, accident prone and unlucky. Also annoying. Adults tend to stop listening to children who say they're in pain continually. Don't do that. Listen to children. Self-diagnosis is the process of identifying medical conditions in oneself. You might be assisted by medical textbooks, the internet, maybe your past experiences, maybe close personal experience of another family member or friend who is going through something that you go, I'm pretty sure my body is doing exactly the same thing. While self-diagnosis is prone to error, it can also be a really valuable tool, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. What are the pros and what are the cons? Interestingly, self-diagnosis is so discouraged by governments and medical establishments that doctors, when learning about medicine, are very much warned not to diagnose themselves with anything because they can make mistakes in diagnosing themselves, which, I mean, couldn't they then make mistakes in diagnosing others? So I have a whole load of different symptoms, but they all branch back to these 2 main things that are wrong with me. Yet I've actually gone through the diagnostic process 3 times, because one of them was misdiagnosed for a few years. When I was first diagnosed with mixed connective tissue disorder, I had no idea what the outcome of the diagnostic process would be, and I was actually semi-surprised by it. I did not know what that condition was. But then after a while I started to realise that it didn't really make sense. And thus I investigated further, and through my own research, and you guys leaving YouTube comments saying, I think you have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, Jessica, hit upon what I thought it was, and then I needed to find a doctor to do all the tests to confirm my self-diagnosis, which is indeed what happened. I did have that. I had EDS when the doctors thought I had something else. I had EDS when only I thought I had it, and I had EDS when all the doctors were in agreement with me. Self-diagnosis can be a step on a pathway to a regular medical diagnosis. You can watch a video about the diagnostic process by clicking the link below or at the card in the top left-hand corner of the screen. But my story is also not the experience of some of my friends who have sought help for mental illnesses, and despite meeting or some cases exceeding criteria for diagnosis of conditions they are 100% sure they have faced being told by clinicians that they shouldn't get held up on a diagnosis, despite saying that it would be helpful to just put a name on what is going on. In wider circles, people generally are skeptical about self-diagnosis when we're speaking beyond the brief, I wonder if this is up, better book in with the doctor stage, and more into the concrete, this is what I have and I don't need someone else to tell me it's so. So let's go over some of the pros and cons of a self-diagnosis. And before we do that, let's have a little talk about today's sponsor, Skillshare. For those of you who somehow don't already know about the wonders of Skillshare, let me tell you all about it. So Skillshare is an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for creative and curious people. You can explore new skills, develop existing interests, and get lost in creativity. creativity. I'm a very creative person, as you can probably tell by my choice in career. I love all things video, photography, and of course, vintage fashion. If you too love being creative and often find yourself starting new projects before finishing the last one, then maybe Skillshare is just what you're looking for. With all this talk about self-diagnosis, things can feel heavy sometimes. I know I can feel overwhelmed when talking about such big topics, especially something that can be a bit controversial. Whether you have a disability like me or not, everyone needs to do a little self-care sometimes, and that can often come in the form of creative joy. I recently watched the online course The Ultimate Self-Care Playbook by Jonathan Van Ness. Yes, the Queer Eye legend! The section that stood out to me was listening to yourself, because having chronic fatigue can obviously feel exhausting, but if you're anything like me, you take on lots of fun projects and you want to go out and about to the farm with your baby, and just doing it all can be too much on me. So I'm learning to listen to my body when it tells me to rest and try to choose my projects at a better rate. And thankfully Skillshare has got my back and yours too. Yes, if you are one of the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link at the top of my description or to use my code, Jessica Kellgren-Fozard, you'll get access to your 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Back to our pros and cons list. We're going to start with the pros because I am an innately positive human being, and self-diagnosis can actually be a really useful tool, especially for marginalised people. 1. Have you seen a waiting list recently? An internet diagnosis is much faster than the long wait to be seen by a specialist, and means that you can actually begin to treat your symptoms, obviously not medicinally, right here and now in a way that may offer some actual relief. Oh, I might have a nerve condition that means I shouldn't cross my legs too much because they go, no, I'm paralysed and I can't find a specialist in my area. I'll just start being mindful of that. I potentially have a heart issue, but the wait for a tilt table test is a year. I shall start always sitting up from bed slowly now. Oh, the celiac blood work isn't coming back for 6 months, but I bleed after eating bread? Yeah, how about I just stop doing that? And you know what? If the problem does clear up in that time, well, that's great. Fab. How could that ever be a bad thing? Whoops. Oh no, you misdiagnosed yourself and it got better. What a shame. Heavy on the sarcasm. Look, acceptance is important, and acceptance of your own struggle is vital. Allowing yourself the grace to say, things are hard for me right now, but I'm trying my best, is honestly an essential to any diagnostic process. 2. Alternatively, self-diagnosis can ease your mind as you realise that what you're experiencing is pretty common, or like a low-level problem that can be sorted with a slight change in routine or diet. Did you eat 6 bananas yesterday and now have stomachache? Because same. Do you also have a toddler who likes to eat whole bananas, but only the top? And that's paired with your own inability to let bananas just lie, half-eaten on the counter. Yeah, I know. That's great for saving a doctor's time and not placing pressure on the health service if you're in a country with universal healthcare, or your wallet if you're not. But make sure that if you continue to have the issue, you do actually go and have it looked at, please. And why is it great that you found out it was just a common cold and not the flu through a Google search rather than going to the doctor? Because Google isn't going to give you the judgy eyes, say, seriously, I'm 5 hours into this shift and I've already dealt with 3 car crashes. Can you please just sit on the sofa with some chicken soup? Christ. 3. Sometimes no one listens to you. It might be because you're young, or female, or genderqueer, or maybe your skin tone just doesn't match the doctor's, or maybe you just don't know all the right medical words. Pro tip, marry a medical person. Take them to every appointment to say long Latin words whilst you nod gravely for the added gravitas. Whatever the reason, certain people struggle to be heard. Ironically, this can also be a reflection of the very condition they're trying to get a diagnosis of. No one taking you seriously about that ADHD diagnosis because you talk too much, you're all over the place, and you can't actually keep track of symptoms to give someone a list when they ask you one. Yeah, it might be worth grabbing a pen and paper and getting some help. Not even being famous inoculates you against this. 23-time Grand Slam tennis champion Serena Williams suffers from a blood clotting disorder and had to stop taking her usual medication whilst pregnant. After giving birth, she began to lose feeling in her extremities and was in considerable pain. Hospital staff did not listen to her complaints or seem overly concerned and were reluctant to run tests to check for new blood clots. In the USA, black women are 3 times more likely to die during or after childbirth, and she recalls thinking, oh my god, I'm dying, whilst the medical professionals tried to reason with her that the tests just weren't necessary. Once they were finally done, however, they showed immediate surgery was needed to keep the clots from reaching reaching her lungs. So yes, sometimes you do need to talk over the doctors. 4. I live in England and yet still had to pay privately to get re-diagnosed with the rheumatological condition I actually have because my GP, or primary care physician, didn't want to refer me to the free rheumatology route because I had already been diagnosed with something rheumatological. But like, it's not a one and you're done thing. It's not how it works. You don't get turned away if you break your foot because whoops, you already broke the other one when you were a kid. I am very fortunate in that I was able to pay for that one-off private diagnosis, but it certainly isn't something I can afford on a more continual basis, and definitely isn't accessible to the majority of people. In many ways, professional diagnosis is only available to the privileged. Maybe you can't pay for healthcare. Maybe you're too ill to travel particularly far. Maybe you're queer or intersex or transgender and have difficulty finding a doctor who is either accepting or understanding of intersectionality. Often the really, really great doctors are the ones who cost the big bucks. 5. A self-diagnosis helps us to find resources and community. It's as simple as that. We don't need to be gatekept from each other. Regardless of your presentation of whatever the condition may be, and we do all have slight differences in our presentations, because of course we do. Not even identical twins are in exactly the same bodies, are they? Regardless of that, we all have tips and experiences that can help others who are dealing with similar things. Plus, very helpful for giving you access to language so that you can explain what you're going through to others around you. Say the undiagnosed condition you're dealing with is dyslexia. You've been dealing with it your whole life. You don't really know how a normal brain functions. You just know that other people's brains seem to handle information differently. Once you've taken your time and worked out that what you have seems to be dyslexia, you can begin Googling things like how to explain dyslexia to other people, and finally have some tools to help you explain what it is that you're experiencing. It's very difficult once you're in something to know what it is like from the outside and to know how you are different and how what you experience is different. You can now also look up study tips for dyslexics or ways to make your workplace more conducive to productivity. You know, that thing that's supposed to be super important. Equally, it's worth remembering that battling illnesses can be draining and isolating, and that symptoms have often been going on for months or even years before a diagnosis is actually found. Isn't it better to have a community and a sense of camaraderie, even if by the time that doctor's visit rolls around, you find out that it was actually something different? It still helped keep you happy along the way. But now we've mentioned misdiagnosis, so on to the cons list. 1. Self-diagnosis can mean misdiagnosis. Looking up symptoms online means A, you may miss some other related signs of a specific condition and mistakenly think you only have something small and temporary when you actually have something big, or B, you think you have something big, but actually it's just something really small and you've got yourself all worked up and into a sweat about it. But it's okay. That's a lot of unnecessary stress and worry to place on your shoulders. Or else, again, not enough stress and worry and whoops, you should have gone to go and get that checked. Please go to all your normal checkups. Thank you. Even your dental one. You'd be amazed at the issues that untreated dental work can cause. I'm married to a dentist. 2. Treating yourself incorrectly. Yes, you may actually have the thing you think you do, but by diagnosing yourself and not being under the care of a medical professional when you start attempting to treat your ailment, you may do more harm than good. It might seem cheaper, but it won't be if you're hurting yourself more in the long run. Sometimes there are cost-cutting measures the doctors can agree to, like helping you set up a treatment plan that you can self-manage and then checking in every so often, rather than something more intensive which would rack up those FaceTime hours. Also, make sure that the websites you consult are trustworthy, and if you're taking medical advice, be sure they are actually run by medical professionals. And please, speaking as someone with a heart thing, if you've self-diagnosed with anxiety or another mental condition that also includes physical symptoms, could you please just buy little pulse ox? I'll put a link in the description, and just do some like casual sitting down, standing up tests just when you're feeling pretty relaxed, just to check it isn't a physical thing that you're mistaking for a mental one, because I often have to say, hang on, am I nervous about this? Or is it just my arrhythmia? No clue. Could be nervous. Could just be skipping some heartbeats, as I do. You know, just cash. 3. So you worked out what you've got. Great. Now what? Oh, you don't know? Do I know? No. I guess we'll just sit here awkwardly. Yes, a diagnosis without support can be unhelpful, to say the least. A self-diagnosis by default comes without support and means it's up to us to build it. But what if you're not up to that? What if the pressure of building that support is just more than you can handle? There's a lot of information on the internet, but it's also really difficult to navigate. You may also stumble upon ableism and discrimination, misconceptions about your new identity coming left and right and centre, but without the strong foundation of, yeah well, at least I get a great parking place. That's a complete joke. In the UK at least, the disability diagnosis from a doctor isn't actually tied to the government benefits system. You kind of have to manually plug it in yourself, and it takes months. Socialised healthcare should definitely be more social. It's important to remember that diagnosis is not the end point, but the jumping off point, and it's just the start of your journey. The goal is either healing or learning to live with and accept your condition, and there will likely need to be some professional guidance with that, or else you'll end up feeling a little hopeless. Not that it's guaranteed you'll feel 100% supported should you be diagnosed by a professional. Obviously, these concerns are valid and we should keep them in mind, but there are so many reasons why people decide to self-diagnose regardless, lack of access to appropriate healthcare being a major one. Thus, we should hold that self-diagnosis is a valuable tool in some people's path. After all, putting a name on something by yourself doesn't make the ailment less real or severe. So, is self-diagnosing good? Naturally, there isn't really a straightforward answer to the question, but it's pretty understandable why people might want to try and diagnose themselves. Is it advised? If you don't have other options and it's going to lead towards healing in some sense, especially if that is mental, then that's a decision for you to make. I'm quite sure many of us have our own stories to tell when it comes to the path of self-diagnosis, and I look forward to reading many of them in the comments down below. So thank you in advance for sharing. And thank you also to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Remember, the first 1,000 of my subscribers to click the link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare, so you can start exploring your creativity today. If you're new here, please hit subscribe and the bell icon to be notified when I make a new video. A special thank you to the Clubbies for supporting the channel and making content like this possible to achieve. If you'd like to be a member of the Kellgren-Fozard Club, click the link in the description to sign up, or the join button. Membership includes exclusive behind the scenes content and many other goodies. I'll see you in my next video. Mwah.